Hello and welcome to another Q's Views RPG video. Today we're continuing our monster book series, and I've had this for a little bit now, but haven't had an opportunity to get to it. But here we are today, the Pathfinder 2nd edition, Bestiary 3, or Bestiary. I know some people say it Bestiary. Um, Let me know down in the down in the comment section if you know for sure which one is right. I mean, bestiary seems to be the right way to say it, being there's only an E. But I think I got in the habit of saying bestiary because it's beasts or monsters that's in the book. So we tend to say it, or at least I tend to say it that way sometimes. But it's probably a small, minuscule thing to be concerned with. But let me know what you think about that either way, if you have an opinion. All right, here we go. We have the book open now. We can see the pretty stuff. I know there's somebody that I watch, I'm not going to name who, that doesn't like when the books have blank pages open like that at the front. Maybe this would be a great place to place some monster stats or some other information instead of just having this blank material up front. If you watch this person, you probably know who I'm talking about already. Here we go with the table of contents. I don't do this every video, but I try to remember, and that is to take a look at the credits and take a look at the wonderful people who had a hand in creating this wonderful book. All right, there we go. Very cool. Now, once again, I'm not going to cover every monster that's in this book, but I'm going to cover quite a few of them. And because there are just too many monsters and not enough time to cover every single one of them. We'll start with the Abandoned Zealot. And as always, do you own this book? If so, have you used it? What kind of creatures have you been using out of this book if you have indeed been incorporating it into your campaigns? How do you feel about the art? Have you been able to use any of the creatures in this book in a really effective manner? Now, of course, that has to do with the overall skill of the DM or the GM. But, like for example, there's always some monsters in a monster book that I just don't get to all of them. There's just usually so many. It's tough to get to each and every one of them, even across several campaigns. So obviously some creatures get neglected. Not on purpose though. There just may not be a use for it. The campaign just may simply not call for it. Whatever the situation is, I know there are creatures that I would like to use, but just simply don't have the opportunity. Or creatures that I didn't think that I would ever use, but somehow managed to get them into a campaign. And I don't mean just like an afterthought and just kind of squeezing them in and trying to make it work, but actually found a real situation where they actually either enhance the story or the experience, the gameplay experience, the campaign experience overall for the players. We have some very interesting creatures in here. We have like the Beheaded and the Bito-Bito-san. I can honestly say I've never used either one of these. I've always thought that the Bone Ship was a great idea, and I'm glad I've finally seen it kind of incorporated into the Pathfinder world. And I like how they kind of stat them up the same way as they would a creature or a monster. I've never used these in a campaign, but if you have, let me know. And what is your experience with them? Are they easy to use and manage? What type of, obviously, if they're a ship, they're on the oceans or kind of on the sea. And how do they impact that type of campaign? All right, here we have the Cavalry Brigade, and I think this is called the Cecilia. I'm thinking that's Cecilia. I could be pronouncing that wrong. That's another thing too. I don't always know how to pronounce some of these names of some of these creatures. Cobblemite. Interesting. Coatl. I've always said that Coatl. I think that's the right way to say it. If it's not, someone let me know in the comment section. We have the Div here, which is very interesting looking. And then we also have the Agash. I believe that's the right way to say that as well. I've never used either one of these creatures in a campaign before either. If you have, let me know about your experience with them and how they were utilized maybe in the campaign, and how did the party react to it? What was their resolve for dealing with such a creature? Here we have some divine wardens. Which leads me to this. Is there some creatures in this book that you've avoided on purpose? Maybe you took a look at their stats, or you took a look at some of their abilities, and you felt, you know what, this is too similar to other creatures that I prefer to use. Or maybe you found something in their stat block a little outlandish for your campaign, or something that you felt would be either too challenging for your party to understand, or maybe something that doesn't fit the campaign in terms of their ability. The Flump is always a classic creature, as many of us know. The Goran, the Lang Ghoul. These are pretty crazy and diabolical looking creatures for sure. The Gliminal, I can honestly say I've never used those as well. Or the Globster. And some of these creatures I've looked at and thought maybe it'd be interesting to use them in a campaign, but just haven't got to them yet. All right, here's a pretty cool section on guardian beasts. Of course, these look like the ancient Oriental type lion and dog statues and those kind of things that you would see, kind of in those, representing the mythology and the times, the ancient times of those areas. Hags, of course, we've seen hags before. We've got different hags here. We've got the storm hag and the winter hag, obviously representing, as kind of pretty much as usual. There's some type of elemental aspect to the hags, which I think is cool. I can honestly say I've never used either of these creatures, either the Huldra or the Hayakum or Hayakumi. I'm not sure how to say that either. Very interesting looking creatures for sure. All right, and here we kind of jump ahead a little bit to the Lakatha, which is a hunter, which is a very unique take on it, I must admit. I've never used that. The Lovelorn, I'm not too sure about those either. Let's see, it says a particularly macabre form of undead. So obviously they would seem to have some kind of undead capabilities. And I would imagine certain precautions or spells or, maybe classes that have turn undead abilities may be more effective against this type of creature. Here we go to some more classic type creatures, monkeys and moose. Of course, doesn't matter whether you have one or several. I believe the term is still moose. Another pretty cool creature that also exists in real life. Here we have the narwhal, which is kind of like the narwhal. That might be the same thing. Let me know in the comment section if it is, or if I misunderstand that. Here we have the Nemaith. I believe that H is like would be pronounced the same way as after a W. Kind of gives just some lift to the word. So Nemaith, meth, or well, meh. Maybe do something to that effect. Then the Nemaith looks pretty cool. I like the artwork of a lot of the creatures in this book. I have to admit, I think the artwork is pretty cool. The nymphs, I think a great job was done on most of the artwork in this book, in my opinion. Here we have some phantoms, some phantom beasts, of course. It's always interesting when you have differentiations in different types and of the same, like you have phantoms, that's your creature type, your general type, but then of course you have your variations, your humanoids versus your beasts within that. So I think that's pretty cool to have those kind of options. Here we have some Rakshasa related creatures and beings, powers of various animals and nature, powers of nature. The Rokuro Kubai, I have no idea what that's about either. It looks like basically a tube or worm type of being. Let's see. Come into being when mortals are cursed for some misdeed though often one who hears the curse is not the one who committed the offense. Okay, so it's something audible that they hear to become like this. And it's a curse that's an audible curse, but sometimes it's not the person who the curse is directed to that ends up receiving the curse. That sounds quite unfortunate. All right, here we have some scale scribes and some seahorses. Seahorses are always cool. We have the giant seahorse here. All right, here we have the Skelm and the Skelm Shrine. I'm not sure what the difference is. Street, Skelm, and Shrine. So it must be just a hierarchy. We have one that's a creature level 3 and a creature level 5. So obviously one's a little more foreboding than the other. A little better stats. Pretty cool to have different variations, again, of a similar type or base type of creature or monster. Some more real-world creatures with sloth and snakes. Of course, a lot of people hate snakes. I know people personally who can't stand them. Perhaps you do too, or maybe you're one of those who are one of those who don't like snakes of any kind, or even reptiles. There's some people that just don't like reptiles in general. All right, here we move on to the Tide Hawk, which kind of looks like it's like a flying water elemental type creature. The Tick Belang, I'm not really sure about those either. There's a lot of interesting and creatures in this book that I must admit I've never used them, but would like to see about incorporating them in future campaigns, just to see how they, how usable they are and how much spice or whatever they add to the adventure. Here we have some very interesting looking creatures. We have the Tsukumogami. I think that's the right way to say that. The Itan Momen, the Casa Obak or Obaki, and the Trukin Obaki. This thing right here kind of reminds me of kind of like an umbrella version of like a mimic or something. Very interesting looking, disgusting looking creature. All right, here we have the Wei Yang and the Weasel. Of course, Weasel being more along your lines of the real world type monsters that appear in these books from time to time. And then here we have the Warwood and the Yathian. Kind of looks like some kind of underwater sea crab, lobster meets jellyfish, squid type creature. Kind of like a hybrid of all that. And here we have a creature here that literally looks like he's probably a fae folk, related to treants and I don't know, that kind of thing. I could probably read more about it to find out, I'm sure. But maybe we'll do that in the future. All right, here we are. Now at the end of the book. It says, triple threat. Over 300 captivating creatures and fantastic foes pack the pages of this compendium of creatures from the world of Pathfinder, with classic creatures like Clockworks and Flumps. It's funny, I said that too when we turned to the Flump, that here's the classic creature. Returning favorites like Imperial Dragons, the Mighty Titans, and brand new menaces from all over Galarian. And of course, many of us know, those who've been playing these kind of games for as long as I have or longer. I've been playing these games about 40 years now. You'll know that you really don't need any of these books, essentially, to play these kind of games. However, Pathfinder, in my opinion, has yet again done an amazing job with a wonderful creature book with a second edition Bestiary 2. But what do you think? Is this an easy pass, a hard pass? Is this something you picked up and you're glad you did? Is this something you picked up but wish you hadn't? Do you already have enough monster books and don't need this? Or maybe you're just like the old schooler, or maybe you have house rules, or maybe you have your own set of homemade house rule creatures that you use in your various RPG tabletop campaigns. Regardless of whatever the situation is, if you have this, let me know your thoughts. Thanks again, everyone, for watching, and I hope you have a very enjoyable day.